Deep in the vast wilderness, where ancient pines touched the sky, autumn painted the forest in brilliant shades of gold and crimson. A mother black bear and her small cub made their home among these towering trees, where nature provided everything they needed. The little family spent their days in peaceful routines, gathering the forest's abundant offerings before winter would wrap the land in its icy embrace. The mother bear, her dark fur gleaming in the filtered sunlight, watched with pride as her cub explored their territory. Each morning they would venture to the wild berry patches, where the little one would eagerly stuff its face with the sweet fruits. The mother's keen eyes always stayed alert, ensuring their safety while teaching her young one the vital skills of survival. But as the crisp autumn days continued, something began to change. The mother bear noticed her cub wasn't showing its usual enthusiasm during their foraging trips. Where once it would bound ahead with endless energy, now it often lagged behind, its small paws dragging through fallen leaves. The playful tumbles with other young cubs near the stream became less frequent, and the little one preferred to stay close to its mother's protective presence. At first, these changes seemed minor. Perhaps it was just tiredness from their long days of preparation for winter. Yet the mother's instincts, honed by generations of bear wisdom, sensed something wasn't right. She observed how her cub would leave portions of food untouched, something unheard of for a growing bear preparing for hibernation. The little one's eyes, usually bright with curiosity, now carried a dulled look that made her heart ache with worry. During their evening rest periods, the cub would curl up tightly against her, seeking more warmth than usual despite the mild autumn temperatures. Its breathing sometimes came in short, labored bursts, especially after their shorter walks. The mother bear found herself spending more time grooming her little one, trying to comfort it as any mother would. Her gentle licks met with weak purring sounds instead of the usual playful wrestling. The changes in her cub's behavior became more pronounced as the days grew shorter. The little one started sleeping longer, missing the golden morning hours when the forest was most alive with activity. When awake, it showed little interest in practicing important skills like digging for roots or climbing trees. These activities, once sources of endless entertainment, now seemed to drain its energy completely. Other bears in their territory began preparing their winter dens, but the mother's focus remained solely on her cub. She tried offering different foods, hoping to spark its appetite. Tender shoots, juicy berries, even the sweet honeycombs they occasionally found, but nothing seemed to restore her little one's vigor. The worried mother's instincts told her they needed to find help before the harsh winter arrived. But in their vast wilderness, help seemed like a distant dream. As the autumn days grew shorter and the air carried the first hints of winter's chill, the mother bear faced a growing fear she had never known before. Her cub's condition wasn't improving, and soon they would need to prepare for the long winter ahead. But how could they survive the cold months if her little one was already struggling in these milder days? The answer would come in an unexpected way, but for now the mother bear could only continue her vigilant care, hoping that somehow, somewhere, she would find a way to help her precious cub. The forest, their home that had always provided everything they needed, now seemed to hold no answers to her deepest worries. The peaceful autumn days vanished as winter swept across the forest with frightening speed. Within hours, the temperature plummeted, turning their familiar world into an icy realm. The mother bear felt the bitter cold cutting through her thick fur, but her concern focused entirely on her cub, who trembled visibly despite their shared warmth. The sudden freeze transformed their forest home into an unfamiliar landscape. The berry bushes that had sustained them just days ago now stood bare and frozen. Tree bark, usually a reliable food source, became covered in thick ice. The mother bear's experienced nose could still detect the presence of food beneath the snow, but reaching it required more strength than her weakened cub possessed. Each morning brought new challenges as food became increasingly scarce. The mother bear led her cub to places where ground nuts and tubers usually remained accessible, but the frozen ground refused to yield its treasures. She watched with growing anxiety as her little one's attempts to help dig became weaker, its small paws barely scratching the icy surface before giving up. Their search for suitable shelter turned increasingly urgent as the temperature continued to drop. The mother bear investigated every cave and hollow tree they encountered, but each potential den presented its own problems. Some were too exposed to the bitter wind, others too damp from melting snow. The few dry caves they found already housed other winter residents, who made their territorial claims clear. The mother's concern deepened when she noticed her cub struggling to maintain its body heat, even during their brief rest periods. She would wrap her body around her little one, trying to create a warm shelter, but the cold seemed to seep into her cub's bones despite her best efforts. The little bear's usual resilience appeared to be fading, replaced by a concerning lethargy that no amount of maternal warmth could cure. As darkness fell each evening, the mother bear faced difficult decisions. Her instincts urged her to keep moving, to find better shelter and more food, but her cub's weakening condition made travel increasingly risky. She could sense other predators beginning to take notice of their vulnerability, forcing her to remain vigilant even as exhaustion crept into her own bones. The forest, which had always been their sanctuary, now seemed to conspire against them. Every gust of wind brought new snow, deeper cold, and growing uncertainty. The mother bear's heart ached as she watched her once energetic cub struggle with basic movements, knowing that without a significant change in their circumstances, their situation would only become more dire. Days melted into one another as the mother bear watched her cub's health deteriorate further. The little one's eyes, once bright and curious, now remained half-closed, glazed with exhaustion and illness. Even the simple act of walking became a monumental task for the young bear, each step through the deep snow sapping its remaining strength. The mother's heart broke watching her beloved cub struggle for every breath in the frozen air. Desperate to find substantial food, the mother bear attempted to hunt, something she rarely did in winter. She caught the scent of small animals beneath the snow, but her attempts to catch them proved futile. The energy spent digging through the frozen layers yielded nothing but exhaustion. Each failed hunt meant another meal missed, another step closer to their growing crisis. The few small creatures they managed to find barely provided enough nourishment to keep them moving. The deep snow turned their every movement into an ordeal. The mother bear tried to create paths for her cub, using her larger body to break through the snow drifts. But even these cleared trails proved challenging for her weakened little one. What would normally be a short journey now took hours, with frequent stops as the cub's strength faltered repeatedly. The little bear would collapse into the snow, its small body trembling with exhaustion, forcing them to rest in the bitter cold. The mother bear's own exhaustion began to take its toll. Her muscles ached from constantly forging paths through the deep snow, from carrying her cub over particularly difficult terrain, and from the constant vigilance required to protect them both. Yet she pushed forward, knowing that stopping meant certain death in these harsh conditions. Her maternal instinct drove her onward, even as her own strength began to waver. The forest seemed endless, each snow-covered tree identical to the last. The mother bear's instincts told her they needed to find help soon, but her experience offered no solution to their desperate situation. She watched her cub collapse more frequently, each time taking longer to regain its footing, each time making her fear that this might be the moment she would lose her precious little one. The sound of her cub's labored breathing haunted her every step. Their world narrowed to the space between heartbeats, between breaths, between steps through the endless white expanse. The mother's determination remained unbroken, even as her body screamed for rest. She knew that somewhere, beyond the frozen forest and deep snow, there had to be hope. She just needed to find it before time ran out for her beloved cub. The winter wind howled around them, carrying no promises of salvation, yet the mother bear refused to give up. Her cub's survival meant everything, and she would continue searching until her last breath, if necessary. As dust settled over the frozen landscape, an unfamiliar scent drifted through the bitter wind. The mother bear lifted her head, her nostrils flaring as she caught the distinct smell of wood smoke. In all her years in the wilderness, she had learned to avoid such signs of human presence, teaching her cub to do the same. Yet now, with her little one barely able to move, that distant smoke sparked something new in her mind. Through the gathering darkness, tiny lights flickered in the valley below. The mother bear's instincts screamed warnings of danger, memories of close encounters with humans flooding back. She had seen their powerful weapons, heard their loud machines, and witnessed other bears who ventured too close to human settlements never return. Every lesson of survival told her to turn away, to seek safety deeper in the forest. But her cub's condition left no room for traditional wisdom. The little one lay curled against her, its breathing shallow and irregular, its body trembling despite the shelter she provided. The mother bear faced an impossible choice between the known dangers of humans and the certain death that awaited her cub in the merciless winter forest. The internal struggle tore at her heart. Each time she took a step toward the distant lights, her instincts urged her to retreat. Yet when she tried to turn away, her cub's weakening whimpers drew her back. The battle between maternal love and survival instinct raged within her as fiercely as the winter storm around them. Through the heavy snowfall, more lights appeared, creating a gentle glow that seemed to beckon them forward. The mother bear detected other scents now, strange yet oddly appealing. The aromas of human food carried promises of warmth and sustenance, tempting her with possibilities of salvation for her dying cub. Gathering her courage, the mother bear made her decision. Moving slowly through the deep snow, she guided her exhausted cub toward the lights. Every few steps she would stop, listening intently for danger, ready to defend her little one if necessary. The darkness provided some comfort, allowing them to move closer while remaining partially hidden from human eyes. As they approached, individual buildings became visible through the swirling snow. The mother bear felt her cub press closer against her legs, sensing its fear matching her own. Yet something about one particular cabin, standing slightly apart from the others, caught her attention. Unlike the others, it stood dark and quiet, with only a faint light glowing from within. More importantly, she detected the scent of healing herbs, similar to those she sometimes found in the forest. The solitary cabin stood like a sentinel in the snowy darkness, its weathered walls glowing softly in the moonlight. Through a frost-covered window, a single lamp cast a warm glow into the winter night. The mother bear observed from the forest's edge, her protective instincts heightened as she studied every detail of their potential sanctuary. The cabin's wooden porch creaked softly in the wind, while smoke curled lazily from a stone chimney, promising warmth within. For hours, the mother bear watched the cabin's sole occupant move about inside. Unlike the noisy groups in the other houses, this human moved with quiet purpose. Through the window, she could see him tending to various plants growing in pots along the windowsill, some of which she recognized as healing herbs from the forest. His gentle movements and solitary presence stirred something deep within her, a faint glimmer of possibility. As the night deepened, her cub's condition reached a frightening new low. The little one no longer responded to her gentle nudges, its body limp against her side. The sound of its breathing grew fainter with each passing moment, barely audible above the whisper of falling snow. The mother bear's heart raced with terror as she felt her cub's usually warm body growing colder, despite her attempts to share her warmth. Small ice crystals formed around her cub's nose with each labored breath, and its eyes remained closed no matter how tenderly she licked its face. The vibrant spirit that had once bounded through autumn leaves now lay still, slipping away with each precious second. The mother bear recognized the unmistakable scent of approaching death, a smell that awakened her deepest fears. The human inside the cabin continued his quiet evening routine, unaware of the drama unfolding in his yard. The mother bear watched as he prepared something at a table, the scent of medicinal herbs growing stronger. Her eyes darted between the human and her failing cub, weighing a decision that went against every natural instinct she possessed. Time seemed to freeze as the mother bear faced the moment of truth. Her cub would not survive another hour in the bitter cold, let alone another night. The forest, their ancient home, had failed to provide the help they desperately needed. Now their only hope lay within those wooden walls, in the hands of a creature she had been taught to fear since birth. With infinite gentleness, she gathered her unresponsive cub into her powerful jaws. Each step toward the cabin felt like moving through deep water, her muscles tense with fear and anticipation. The snow crunched softly beneath her weight as she crossed the open space between forest and cabin, her heart pounding so loudly she felt certain it would alert every creature for miles around. Finally reaching the wooden steps of the porch, the mother bear carefully placed her precious burden down. The rough planks still held traces of warmth from the day's sun, a stark contrast to the frozen forest floor. Standing protectively over her cub, she raised her massive head toward the window, knowing the next few moments would determine whether her desperate gamble would save her little one's life or lead them both to disaster. Inside the warm cabin, John Anderson's evening ritual of sorting his medicinal herbs was interrupted by an unfamiliar sound on his porch. 20 years of living alone in these mountains had taught him every noise of the wilderness, but this sound made him pause. His experienced ears detected something large, yet the movement seemed cautious, almost deliberate. Rising slowly from his work table, John approached the window. The sight that greeted him nearly stopped his heart. There on his porch stood a massive black bear, her powerful form silhouetted against the snowy night. His hand instinctively moved toward his rifle, but something about the bear's behavior made him hesitate. She wasn't acting aggressive or searching for food. Instead, she stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed directly on him. Then he noticed what lay at her feet, a small bundle of fur, barely moving, clearly a cub in serious distress. The mother bear shifted her position slightly, allowing the cabin's light to fall more fully on her little one. The message in her eyes became unmistakably clear. She was asking for help. John had spent decades studying wildlife, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this moment. The mother bear maintained her protective stance over her cub, but her body language spoke of desperation rather than aggression. When John moved closer to the window, she didn't rear up or show signs of threat. Instead, she lowered her head slightly, maintaining eye contact in a way that seemed almost human in its intelligence and pleading nature. John's medical supplies included treatments for local wildlife, as he occasionally helped injured animals under the guidance of regional wildlife services. His mind raced through the possibilities, knowing that any wrong move could shatter this unprecedented moment of trust. The mother bear's choice to seek human help went against every natural instinct, reflecting the depth of her desperation. With slow, deliberate movements, John reached for his coat and medical bag. The mother bear watched every motion, her body tense but not threatening. As he approached the door, her only response was to take a single step back, creating space while remaining close enough to protect her cub if necessary. The trust she displayed, however tentative, amazed him. Opening the door required every ounce of courage John possessed. The bitter wind rushed in, carrying snowflakes and the unmistakable wild scent of bear. The mother bear stood her ground, her breath visible in the cold air, her eyes never leaving his face. The space between them crackled with tension, yet underneath lay something extraordinary, a bridge of understanding between two species driven by compassion and necessity. John knelt on his porch, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. Years of wilderness experience guided his actions as he spoke in soft, soothing tones. The mother bear remained alert but showed remarkable restraint, her eyes following his every movement with intense focus. Her presence, though intimidating, carried no hostility. Carefully opening his medical bag, John began laying out supplies. The familiar scent of herbal remedies drifted through the cold air. The mother bear's nostrils flared, recognizing some of the natural medicines she had encountered in the forest. Her massive form shifted slightly, allowing John better access to her cub while maintaining her protective watch. The little bear lay motionless except for shallow breaths. John's experienced hands moved gently over its small body, checking vital signs. The cub's temperature had dropped dangerously low, its pulse weak and irregular. Without immediate intervention, the young bear would not survive the night. Understanding the urgency, John reached for a thermal blanket and his strongest herbal remedies. The mother bear watched intently as John wrapped her cub in the blanket. Her trust, though fragile, grew stronger as she observed the obvious care in his actions. When he produced a small bottle of medicine, she leaned forward, sniffing cautiously. The familiar scent of forest herbs seemed to reassure her, and she made no move to stop him as he administered the first dose to her unconscious cub. Time seemed suspended on that snowy porch as John worked. The mother bear's presence became less threatening and more collaborative, as if she understood each step of the treatment. When he needed to adjust the cub's position, she moved accordingly, maintaining the delicate balance between protection and cooperation. Her intelligence and adaptability amazed him, challenging everything he thought he knew about these powerful creatures. As the medicine began taking effect, small signs of improvement appeared. The cub's breathing deepened, becoming more regular. Its small body gradually warmed under the thermal blanket. Each positive change was met with visible relief from both the mother bear and John. Their shared concern for the cub's welfare had created an extraordinary bond, transcending the natural barriers between their species. The night grew deeper, but neither human nor bear showed any sign of leaving. John continued monitoring the cub's progress, occasionally administering more medicine. The mother bear settled into a watchful vigil, her large form providing additional warmth and protection from the bitter wind. Their unlikely partnership, born of desperate necessity, had evolved into something remarkable. As dawn painted the snowy landscape in soft colors, a remarkable routine began to establish itself at the solitary cabin. Each morning, John would emerge onto his porch, carrying fresh medicines and nourishment for both mother and cub. The mother bear, who had maintained her vigil through the long night, would acknowledge his presence with a gentle rumble, her eyes showing recognition rather than fear. The little cub's recovery progressed slowly but steadily. Each day brought small victories that both John and the mother bear celebrated in their own ways. The first time the cub lifted its head independently, the mother bear made a soft, purring sound that touched John's heart. When the young bear finally accepted food from a bowl, its mother watched with visible relief, her own anxiety easing as her little one showed signs of returning strength. John developed a careful routine for their daily treatments. He would prepare a mixture of honey and herbs, adding vital medications that would help fight the cub's illness. The mother bear learned to recognize the specific bottles and containers he used, showing remarkable patience as he administered each dose. Her trust in him grew stronger with each successful treatment, though she never relaxed her protective watch. Throughout the days, the mother bear remained a constant presence on the porch. She would allow herself brief periods of rest, but only when she felt certain her cub was stable. John provided her with food and water, understanding that she would not leave her little one's side to hunt or forage. Her dedication moved him deeply, reminding him of the universal power of a mother's love. The bond between man and bears deepened with each passing day. John found himself talking softly to them as he worked, explaining his actions and offering gentle encouragement. The mother bear would listen, tilting her head in a way that suggested understanding. When the cub needed to be repositioned or examined, she would assist by nudging it gently, working in surprising harmony with John's efforts. Small milestones marked their journey together. The first time the cub managed to stand, albeit shakily, John noticed tears in his own eyes. The mother bear pressed her nose against her little one's fur, her relief palpable in the cold air. When the young bear took its first wobbly steps across the porch, both human and mother bear watched with shared joy, united in their investment in its recovery. Weather conditions remained harsh, but John's porch became a sanctuary of healing. He installed additional lighting and weather protection, creating a sheltered space where the bears could remain comfortable. The mother bear accepted these changes with remarkable adaptability, seeming to understand that each modification was meant to help her cub grow stronger. The transformation of the sick cub into a vibrant young bear brought joy to both John and the mother bear. Each morning now greeted them with increasing signs of recovery. The cub's eyes sparkled with returning vitality, its movements growing stronger and more confident with each passing day. The mother bear watched with visible pride as her little one began exploring the porch with newfound energy. Playful moments, absent during the desperate days of illness, returned with heartwarming frequency. The cub would tumble and roll across the wooden planks, occasionally pawing at snowflakes that drifted onto the porch. Its mother, though still watchful, allowed these playful adventures with visible relief, her own demeanor softening as she witnessed her little one's return to normal behavior. John observed these changes with mixed emotions. The sight of the cub testing its renewed strength filled him with satisfaction, yet he knew these improvements meant their time together would soon end. He watched as the young bear practiced climbing the porch posts, its coordination improving daily. The mother bear supervised these exercises carefully, offering gentle correction when needed. The wilderness called more strongly to them with each passing day. The mother bear grew increasingly alert to forest sounds, her natural instincts awakening as her cub regained health. During their final days at the cabin, she began taking her little one on short excursions into the nearby woods, always returning to the safety of the porch before nightfall. These practice journeys became longer as the cub's endurance grew. John would watch them venture out, the young bear now moving confidently through the snow, its illness becoming a distant memory. The mother bear's teaching instincts resurfaced, showing her cub how to navigate the winter forest safely. Each successful return demonstrated the cub's growing readiness for their permanent departure. One crisp morning, John sensed the difference in their behavior. The mother bear stood taller, more alert, while her cub displayed an eagerness for adventure that had been absent during its illness. As they prepared to leave, the mother bear approached John one final time. Her eyes met his with an intelligence that spoke of gratitude and farewell. Then, with gentle urgency, she guided her healthy cub toward the forest, their forms gradually disappearing into the endless white wilderness that had always been their true home. Want to read more inspiring wildlife stories? Subscribe to our newsletter for weekly updates on extraordinary animal encounters, conservation success stories, and helpful tips for supporting wildlife in your area.